welcome to the Super Dandori Bros Podcast. We are your hosts, Leighton and Ryan, and we are excited to be back after a bit of a break. We're sorry, but we kind of got obsessed with this game that came out called Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and we had to beat that game because it was just consuming our lives, and it's epic. We're not going to talk about it because we don't want to spoil it because it's one of the best games ever, but Ryan and I give it like as many thumbs up as humanly possible. If you haven't played it, go play it.
Yeah, and for me, that's 3 thumbs.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, I'm putting my toes up. I don't know. It's criminally underrated. I shouldn't say underrated. Everyone's loving it and rated really well, but like it's criminally undersold. I'll put it that way. It should be something like 10 million plus.
I think eventually it's actually going to do. Something tells me this game is going to actually have quite the tail on it, sales wise.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
But yeah, that's our plug. Go play that game. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Especially if you clicked on this and you looked at the thumbnail, you're like, "What the heck?" No, we're talking about Star Wars games. Totally. Finally. Like Clair Obscur. Now we've been talking about doing this subject for a while, but we realized it's going to be a lot. There's a lot of Star Wars games. We obviously haven't played every single Star Wars game out there, but we've played quite a few. I think we were around for a lot of the golden years of Star Wars games. So, I got a huge list here of games. I think I have like 26 games on my list. But I haven't beat all of them, but I've definitely played all these, and so I'm really excited to talk about some of these. Ryan, I know you have a pretty comprehensive list as well.
Yeah, and what's funny is that even just like sort of comparing notes briefly beforehand, like there's only some overlap between what we played. Like there's in the entire pantheon of Star Wars games, the amounts that we've experienced have only overlapped a little bit, and I think that's actually quite impressive for that says a lot for how many games there are.
Well, I think there's going to be a little more overlap than we think, but definitely there's some games where you were surprised that there wasn't overlap, and we'll get to those games in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's just jump right into it. We're going to talk mostly about single-player games to begin with, and while we haven't finished recording this, I have a feeling this is going to be a two-parter just because of how many games there are, so just be aware that there's going to be a lot of games, so enjoy this. So Ryan, give me your first Star Wars game that you remember, maybe like one of your favorite Star Wars games.
Okay.
Single player.
So one of my favorites? Yeah, so if I had to pick like one of my favorite single player Star Wars games, I'd have to go back quite a ways. I guess it's not like all that far back, but it will be for some people. And that would be Knights of the Old Republic. And Knights of the Old Republic 2. They're obviously two separate games, but they're, in some ways, very similar. And for me, I prefer 2 more, personally, more than 1. I think they're phenomenal RPGs. They sort of follow, the old, like essentially like BioWare, made the first one, and the gameplay in some ways is very similar to how Dragon Age Origins ended up turning out. Sort of like in some ways it's almost like turn-based, and in some ways it's actually just very MMO-like in a way. And I would say that was like the first like narrative game that I ever beat, probably. But that's just me. But I was surprised to learn that you have actually, even though you know a bit about the story, you've actually never played it yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna get flamed for this, but yeah, I've never played. Now, I shouldn't say never. I've played like the first opening level of Knights of the Old Republic because I had like a demo or something. But I've never gone through and beat the entire game. Definitely haven't beat the second one either because I've got to beat the first one first. But yeah, it's just one of those things where that game came out, I just did not have the means to play it with any system. I was pretty much only on handhelds at the time. Didn't have a PC to run it. And I don't even know if it was on PC. I think it was an Xbox exclusive at first. I don't remember if it was on PC.
It did eventually come to PC.
Yeah, but it didn't launch at PC, I don't think.
I don't believe it did, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. But even then, I didn't have a good PC to run anything anyway. And then by the time I had a chance to play it, I just had so many other games. And it's one of those games I've been meaning to go back to, but I need to like really sink my teeth into it because it's a big game. And I'm really bad at finishing big games. So like I don't want to get halfway through and then get distracted and then just never pick up my save file again. I really want to know that I can like beat it from start to finish. So I do need to do it. It's definitely on high on my list of Star Wars games that I need to go play. But it's just for one reason or another, I just haven't got around to it. But everyone I know says it's one of the best Star Wars games ever. So I feel like I'm definitely missing out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those, like, if you like RPGs, then it's definitely like a phenomenal entry into even just like RPGs in general, but especially like when you're looking at Star Wars games, like it's also one of the best. And so the fact that you get, the best of an RPG and the best of Star Wars, like it essentially puts it into the must play category at some point.
Mm-hmm. So did you play that when it first came out, or did you play it later on?
No, I played it later on, like a few years later. I ended up playing it on Xbox first. I had first seen it on, I had a friend from like middle school, his brother was playing it on the PC, and I'm like, oh, what's this? And so I learned about it, and I eventually ended up getting it for Xbox and just like playing straight through, and had an absolute blast with it, but totally did not understand how to play the game like at all. Like tiny pea brain, at the time didn't understand exactly how the game was put together and the best way to play it. And so in some ways I've always wanted to go back and sort of like, try to do it for real this time, and fully understand it. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you you still have the game?
Yeah, I have it. I have the original like Xbox disc, and then I also like picked it up on Steam, like I don't know, like a few years after I started playing games on PC, because it was like $2 or whatever. I don't know. It was really cheap, and so I'm just like, I'll just pick this up.
I'm pretty sure I have it for PC too. And it's one of those games where I feel like if I could just get myself a Steam Deck, I probably would play the crap out of it. But I just haven't had the time. And again, it's on Switch too, so I or the original Switch, and it'll also of course be available for Switch too. But it's on the Switch as well. And it's full price, so it's like I need to get it like at a reasonable price for the Switch, and then maybe I'll play it. But it's a great game. I mean, I unfortunately have been, big twist end of it has been spoiled for me just because of how old the game is. But I still think that won't necessarily ruin the game. I mean, obviously it hurts that one point, but from what I understand, it's still like people go back and play it all the time, knowing how the story goes. So it's still obviously a very good game.
Absolutely. So how about you? What's one of your favorite Star Wars games?
So if we're talking about my single player too, I would say probably one of the ones that I remember playing a lot and have beaten and have gone back and played multiple times is Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. And
yeah,
have you played that
one? Time for me to get flamed, because I've never played that one.
Oh, okay, we can both get flamed. Yeah. No, so here's the thing though, right? There's two ways you can play that game. You can play it like completely normal, like the way it is, the way the game is intended. But I loved playing it with certain cheat codes on, but not the cheat codes to make me invincible, but the ones to give your lightsaber a realistic physics, basically, where like the moment you sliced an arm, it just literally went through the arm. So lightsaber fights were very, very quick in my playthrough, either for me or for them. But still, even then, like the story is great, the characters are great, the gameplay. This is like obviously before some of the more modern games, but it was one of the first games that really made you feel like a Jedi. Like the combat in it was so ahead of its time. The way you interacted with fights and attacking the different, like you can change your style of lightsaber, I don't know, your sword fighting style basically to heavier, lighter, and like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like it was so revolutionary at the time, being able to just run around third person with a lightsaber and do all these epic fights and using force powers. It was a pretty wild game. I remember playing it, like first time was at a friend's house on GameCube, but then I eventually got it for PC later on. But then I beat it and I loved it. It was so much fun. I also played a bit of Jedi Academy, but never actually beat Jedi Academy. I don't know why. But Jedi Knight 2 just hooked me really well. So, phenomenal game. And it had multiplayer too, but I never got to, I think I had it way too late. I mean, I know that's not true. I know people are still playing multiplayer now. I just haven't gone through the effort to actually set myself up to play it. Plus, those people are pretty diehard, so I'll probably get absolutely destroyed.
Probably. Well, okay, so we've both picked essentially single player games where you play as Jedi. So I think that it would be fair to transition at this point to something a little bit more modern that we've both played, which is Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, that's there's actually overlap there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that, at least from my understanding of the game, Fallen Order is a bit closer to, Jedi Knight 2 than it is to like Knights of the Old Republic, for example, which is much, much more RPG focused. Would I be right in guessing this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
And so I guess, like, for me, what I loved about Fallen Order was, honestly, I love so the gameplay is obviously great. It's got like a Metroidvania style for navigation, which I actually think is quite brilliant, to combine with the Souls game, which is essentially sort of what Jedi Fallen Order is from a combat perspective, is it's like a Sekiro Souls-like game. And honestly, like, I ended up just like being really surprised about this. I remember when the game was first announced, and it was like literally like some dude sitting in like a chair at, I think it was like either E3 or the Game Awards, and they're just like, yeah, so you got a big announcement. What are you working on? He's like, yeah, we're working on a game called Jedi Fallen Order. And like that was the announcement, and I was like, there's no shot that this is actually good. Like, there's no way this is actually good. And then my brother ended up getting it for Christmas one year, and so then I just started playing it when he wasn't, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was great. It was like best Star Wars game I've played in a very, very long time. What about you?
For Fallen Order, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I picked it up on Steam, when it was on sale, because I didn't, again, one of those, like, I'm not been good at keeping up with really up to modern hardware when these games come out, but I finally was able to play it, and yeah, it was just like, it kind of gave me the same feeling I had playing Jedi Knight 2. Like, it was kind of like, this is the modern version of that, because I was just so impressed with, again, how well the combat worked, how well, and the story is just really, it's so cinematic. I was so impressed by how well the cutscenes worked, how well you just felt like you moved around the world. Didn't feel, I mean, it still was a video game, but it felt like it was, I don't know, it was very, I don't know how to put it, just very engaging. And
yeah, I think sort of in the way that Rocksteady really captured the way that it felt to be Batman. Like, Respawn really captured what it felt like to be a Jedi, in the way that you move around the world, and the way that you solve puzzles and approach combat encounters, and the variety of tools at your disposal at any one time. That's sort of the way that I feel about it.
Yeah, and it's just, the characters were really well done. The writing, the story, and then, like, and I do agree with the Metroidvania, where the fact you actually revisit some of these places and like unlock new things from some of your different force powers you unlock is really cool. But then also just, yeah, some of the late game story beats are just, I'm not going to say anything, even though it's an older game, but I still don't want to spoil it for people. But there's just some really just epic stuff that happens in the end of the game that just is so cool, and you just feel really like a powerful Jedi. But then I can't say anymore.
Yeah, I feel like they did, and there's not that much that I'm going to give credit to Disney for about Star Wars. One thing that I do think that they actually have gotten right, I'd say more often than not, is that when they want to make a character imposing, a particular character that exactly who I'm talking about, most people are going to know who I'm talking about, they've done a phenomenal job with it.
Yeah.
And I think that some of that does carry over to the way that they handle Fallen Order and its villain roster, is that, especially in the beginning, the villains feel particularly imposing,
deadly.
They feel like legitimate threats. Yeah, deadly. Like, you actually like sort of feel like, oh wow, they would take me out in like one hit, like, for sure. And then the way that the story progresses, and you see Cal go on this journey to recover what he's lost in terms of his training and his connection with the Force, and then eventually being able to go toe to toe with some of the villains that he easily lost to in the beginning of the game. I think that's actually like, and this is sort of, I guess, a minor spoiler for the game, but I think that is an extremely effective tool in general are forced losses in games. So like I'll give you an example. Is in Golden Sun 1, the initial fight with Satros and Minardi in the very beginning of the game, like you have to lose that.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, there is something about being forced to lose a battle that you at least got to interact with at least a little bit that actually like makes the payoff later on that much better. And I actually in some ways wish that more games did that from a narrative standpoint. Obviously it makes replaying it a little less enjoyable, but that first playthrough, I think that matters. And I think that also um has some even more recent experience for both of us in games that really captured that as well. And I think you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. I will say too that I really enjoyed that the game didn't. Star Wars was going through a phase where it was kind of trying to pretend the prequels didn't happen, and this game didn't. It actually embraced some of the lore from the prequels. I mean, it's very heavily tied to basically Episode 3 and Order 66 and different things like that. And I thought that was so well like put together narratively. And also to your point, saying like, you know, scenes where you have to lose, I do agree 100%. It gives you a personal stake in the fight because you lost, not just the character, but like you were in there and you couldn't win. And so it makes you feel like connected to the character and their loss and your desire to come back stronger. And I know there's another certain game we've played recently that has a lot of that in different scenes. And I think it was played out very well narratively. It really, again, ties you into the emotional aspect of what's going on with the character because you are the one losing. You are the one failing. And so it forces you to feel powerless. It forces you to feel like there's no hope. And then to give you the chance to prove yourself and get better is kind of the whole hero's journey being played out, but with you really being at the helm of it. Obviously, it's forced upon you. Like you obviously, you know, can't. It's the game forces you to not win. Like even if you were like somehow able to like, you know, dodge everything, and it's like the game just doesn't allow you to win. So, yeah, I think it's really well done though from all aspects, both narratively. It's a fun game to actually play. It's not just really good story, crappy gameplay. And it, just, you get the right Star Wars characters, locales. Yeah, it was just an overall good Star Wars game. After a while, we'd had a drought of, I feel like, really decent Star Wars games. It was kind of like a really good a breath of fresh air. And I haven't played the sequel yet, mostly, again, due to hardware limitations. And so eventually I'll get to play that. I've heard it's still pretty good. It came out, had some bugs, but I heard they fixed a lot of that now. So I'm hoping by the time I get to play it, it'll just, be a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, I ended up picking it up on PlayStation 5. So I have the game, just sitting in the cabinet over there, but just haven't had the time to sit down and play it. And it ended up getting a pretty significant, like pretty early on, you could find it on sale for, like half off or whatever. I was actually kind of surprised.
Yeah. I think it had a rocky launch. That's why.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, from what I understand, at least from a gameplay perspective, it holds up really well. From a story perspective, I've heard it isn't quite as good. And I know a little bit about the story, but I want to judge that for myself when I finally get to play it.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's see. What else we got? Okay, here's a game. I'm going to take us back a little bit, right? We're staying on single player. This is a game that I actually own now, but when I beat it, I actually didn't own it. I beat it while staying, like I was at a party. I say a party. My parents took me, I was a kid, to a party, and I didn't know anyone. There's barely any kids there, but they had a PlayStation 2 upstairs, and me and my siblings went up there, and they were like, oh yeah, you can play that. And so I turned it on, and there's this game on it called Star Wars Starfighter. And
nice.
It's a, basically it's a Starfighter game. It's based on episode 1. So you actually get to play as 3 different pilots in the game, but it starts you out in one of the Naboo starships, and you I guess there's a lot of story to it, but basically you go all these different levels, you meet all these different characters, and the end of the game ends up with you in the same fight as the end of Star Wars Episode 1, where you go up and take out the droid command ship. But it's one of those games where, like, as a kid, I beat it all in one sitting. Like, it's a very short game. But I really like the game, at least when I played it then. It's a little janky on the PC, and it likes to crash. And you have to do a lot of work to kind of mess with the controls because it's inverted by default. So, and you have to, like, I think you have to change like a text file to get it to not be inverted. So it's not like a simple options menu. But
of course,
it's a very interesting game. It actually has a very interesting story. It's one of those games that came out after, it's obviously not all canon anymore because Star Wars, they changed a bunch of stuff. But at the time, I believe it was fairly canon. They actually introduced a lot of interesting starships and a lot of interesting characters that I think it did end up going on to stay in canon. But yeah, it was like an old PS2. I think it was on Xbox as well, maybe. But I beat it on a PS2, and I've always been really into the Starfighter style Star Wars games. Like, and we'll talk more about the other ones I really liked. But Starfighter was one that, like, I just thought I'd bring it up because it's just, I didn't know where I was going to fit in this whole conversation. I'm just going to get it off the list. I don't know if you ever played that game or not.
I like very briefly, but I always really enjoyed what I did play of it, and I always wanted to go back and be able to, play the game in its entirety. I did play like some Rogue Squadron, which is obviously in the same vein.
That was the next one I was going to go to.
Yeah, I figured we were heading there. But I've actually put the most time into Squadrons, the most recent game, which is, it plays very differently. It is much less arcadey. I do love the depth of like control that you have over the ship, but it makes it a lot less approachable for people who aren't looking for that kind of experience. You know what I mean? And so I love that it's there, and I think it should be there, and I would love a sequel. I would love more support. At the same time, I could totally see why we might not ever get it, because it does offer a depth of experience that you don't normally get.
Yeah, and so my understanding of Squadrons was that it was somewhat trying to recapture some of the magic of Star Wars X-Wing, Star Wars TIE Fighter from back in the day, which I never got a chance to play. I've been meaning to go back and play those, even though they're definitely very old, but they're very, very iconic classic games. But they're very much trying to capture a little bit of that, with the sense that you can control your boosters, your powers, and your shields. I think it's like this, so your speed, your attack, and your defense, and you can change your energy levels for each one of those. And I think that's super cool because you can really get crazy with it. And the controls are very, very more traditional fighter controls. Especially, it's almost a game you really want to play with a control stick, because it kind of plays very much like a traditional pilot game, but obviously in space, so it's got a little bit more nuance to it. But I've played it a bit. I actually wanted to play it with VR. I have the VR headset, but I don't think my computer can handle the VR version of it. Maybe it could, but I played it for a while. I actually had a lot of fun with it. I just never got too far into it. You probably got a lot further. I think I only got maybe like 10 missions in.
I beat the game, and then I played quite a bit of multiplayer for a little while, trying to get all the trophies. And I did a half-decent job. I ended up actually, I can see it right now, I ended up joining the Discord for multiplayer, and like trying to sync up the time that I play with like, their weekly meetups to like at least try to match into some games. But, the multiplayer is so dead unless you are able to target that. Really it's hard to like recommend going into the game if you're looking for a multiplayer experience. If you would be satisfied with a single player experience, then I can absolutely recommend it.
So it's basically mostly a single player game at this point.
At this point, it pretty much is. And then sadly, the VR functionality is not compatible with PSVR 2, and so I've never been able to like try the VR capabilities of it, which is a little too bad. It makes me wonder if it would be possible with like with the PC version, and like now that the PSVR 2 can work with PC if you have that little adapter. That might be something I try eventually. But
Yeah, I mean, it's a good VR headset for PC. But yeah, I need to go back and play more of it because I actually did really enjoy what I was playing. I think I can't remember if another game came out or just, again, life happens now as an adult and a dad. So, but it's, yeah, I mean, it looks visually great. The story from what I played was pretty decent. I didn't beat it, so I don't know the whole story beats, but it's, no, I recommend it. I mean, definitely, still have it on Steam, so I'll probably pick it up again eventually.
Definitely.
Well, since we're just gonna be on that subject, Starfighter Squadrons, might as well get into probably one of my favorite games of all time, and that's got to be Rogue Squadron 2. Just I don't know why it sticks with me. Probably again because I love the Starfighter games, and it came out at that time when the GameCube was brand new. It was a launch title for the GameCube, which kind of blows my mind because the game still looks incredible today, like super underrated. And yeah, I mean, I've gone back to play. I wish, I hope somehow Nintendo and Star Wars can be on good terms and it comes out on the Switch 2 GameCube library, but I don't know. But it's definitely one of those games where I have so many memories. I've beat the whole thing, and it just, I remember unlocking all the starfighters. It was so cool when I love the Naboo starfighter. I know I'm not calling it right. I know there's the right name for it. I say I love it and I don't even remember what the actual class designation.
I think that is actually, that's what the Lego set was called.
No, but I think there's a designation for it, and I'm not giving it the correct thing. But people know what I'm talking about. Because Star Wars Episode 1 was the first Star Wars movie I ever watched, and I always loved the design of that. I don't know why. It's just such a sleek, cool looking design.
It's awesome.
So I'm really Anyway, so I love that game. I played Rogue Squadron 3 a little bit, but Rogue Squadron 3. I didn't like the land levels as much. I really liked Rogue Squadron 2 because it was just pretty much in space the whole time, or like flying ships. But yeah, just ahead of its time kind of game. Still holds up today. I mean, honestly, if they just released and they're re-releasing like all these Star Wars games from that generation. So I'm just really hoping that Rogue Squadron 2 and 3, maybe even 1. I never actually played 1. But if they re-release 2, I would buy it in a heartbeat. Seriously, remastered.
Yeah, 1 is the one that I've played the most of, and I actually played it fairly recently, like within the last year or so.
It's on PC, isn't it?
Exactly, that's where I was playing it. And,
yeah,
it can be a little finicky to run, at least on my setup. But largely I had a really good time with it. Though I will say like some of the levels actually are kind of difficult to navigate, and I don't know if that's a limitation of the controls on the PC, or if it's and like maybe it would be better with like a controller or something like that. But I remember like actually like it was very difficult to get gold on every mission or whatever. But I did like the arcadey like aspect of it. I really enjoyed that a lot, and I kind of missed it because I got to play it a little bit as a kid. One of my friends had it, and I always wanted to give it like more time, but never had the chance before.
Yeah, I know it was a big deal on N64 because I can't remember if it required it or if it was optional, but back when the N64 had that 4 megabyte expansion pack, like I think you either needed it or it's just a way better way of playing it because you could suddenly play it like double the resolution, and the game I think it might have just looked better on the N64. It was definitely a big like visual showcase for the N64 at the time, and Rogue Squadron 2 was an insane visual showcase for the launch of the GameCube. Still, like I said, still one of the best looking games on that system, and it came out day one, just like Luigi's Mansion. They were both visual showcases showing what that hardware was capable of, and so. Yeah, definitely. I just wish so badly there was a way to buy those games now. Like, I can't get them on PC. They don't have them they never re-released them on any virtual console, eShops, or anything. So I'm like, just please hoping that they come out with some re-release for the game. I mean, it'll probably come out in multiple systems because I can't imagine they're only going to release it for Nintendo, but it'd be cool to see just some form of re-release of those, of it's all three of them, maybe like a trilogy, Rogue Squadron trilogy set. So
That'd be phenomenal. Like I know that they've, you know, done re-releases of some of the Star Wars games from like, you know, that era or a little bit later. Like, you know, we got Episode 1 Racer, which I do want to talk about in a little bit more detail. And I know that like the original Battlefront games, Bounty Hunter, like they've all gotten ported, and it just seems to me like that's really the series that in some ways deserve the port the most, Rogue Squadron, and
yeah.
yet it hasn't gotten it yet. And so I feel like there's got to be a reason for that.
I think this might be some licensing issues, could be like, something to do with the developer. I don't know. I know it was like also one of those games that was notoriously hard to emulate, so I wonder if it's just really hard to get it. Like, I mean, if they have the original code, maybe if they don't have the original code, I don't know. Maybe they have to emulate it and that's a problem, or maybe they just don't want to recompile it. I don't know. Who knows?
The game's made entirely of spaghetti code or something.
I mean,
They just cannot like figure it out.
Who knows? I mean, it ran phenomenally, so if it was some pretty good spaghetti code, if it did run on that, but yeah, well, all right. Well, I mean, you mentioned another game. I don't know if you want to bring it up now or not.
Yeah, I'm fine with it because even though it does have multiplayer components, like I did primarily play it as a single player game, which is Episode 1 Racer. Like if I had to say like all time favorite Star Wars game, that's probably it.
Really?
I love that game. It's so goofy. I remember like, so when I played it as a kid, I played it on the keyboard, and so I would turn with the arrow keys.
Oh my gosh!
And yeah, it was a living nightmare because there was one. How much of it have you played?
I've beat it.
Okay, so it's the second level of the fourth tier of tracks, and it's the cloud. It's not Cloud City, but it's like a gas giant, and it's that like world, and you have like, it's like right at the start of the level, and of course they're all 3 laps, so you got to do it perfectly 3 times. There's like 2 levels on top of each other, and they're quite narrow, and it's in like a tunnel, and if you fall off, you have to go like 2 or 3 times the distance. You know exactly which one
I know
I'm talking
exactly
about,
what you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. So trying to do that with a keyboard as a kid was a living nightmare. And I just couldn't do it. And I was like, how in the world are you supposed to beat this? And of course, I thought I was great at the game. And then as I got older, I was like, oh no, I was just trash at every game as a kid. So like, it's probably actually pretty easy. And then, like, I don't know, I think it was a couple years ago, whenever it like came out on Switch, my wife picked it up because she had some store credit, and she's like, oh, I love this game. It was great. And so then she goes to work, and I just download it onto my Switch using her profile, and I beat the whole game in one day. And that level still drove me absolutely insane with a control stick. Now, granted, it was a Joy-Con control stick, so not the best control stick out there, but still much better than a keyboard, and still drove me absolutely insane.
Oh yeah.
Regardless, I love that game. It's so goofy.
It's so
My
goofy.
wife and I still quote Watto to this day.
Oh my gosh, the dialogue, it's such at its core, it's a really simple game, but at the same time, it's like they had a lot of depth to it, and it actually controlled phenomenally. Like, I mean, for its time, right? I mean, like, yeah, I can go back and play it now and still actually have a really good time. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how to put it. It's just, it still has that sense of speed. It's fun to go to all these locales, and it definitely feel like, yeah, there's definitely levels like that where you're just like, what the heck, this sucks. But at the same time, like, you still have fun with it. Like, all the levels the tracks are really well designed overall. They're really challenging. I love the different, pod racers you can pick and all the different specs, and like, I don't know, like, I just, yeah, it's one of my earliest game memories I have. I didn't own it as a kid, but I remember playing it. Like, I don't know if you remember back in the day, they used to have N64s at McDonald's.
No, I never like went to McDonald's as a kid because my mom thought that they put mice in their burgers or
Oh my
something
gosh.
like that.
Well, separate from that, there was a McDonald's at a particular McDonald's. Not all McDonald's had this, but there's a particular McDonald's that I loved going to because they had these N64s there. And one of the games they had was Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. And I would go there and play it on those gummy, crummy controllers, that would be beat up by these kids. But I just loved it. I just thought it was the coolest thing. Because, I mean, back then, that was like realistic graphics. We were like, this is as good as it gets, right? And so it was just such an impressive game. And then eventually I got it for PC. And I think I actually played it with maybe I did play it with a keyboard. I might have been the same boat as you, but I think I did eventually switch to a controller at some point. But yeah, that game, like, you can just it's to me it's like the Star Wars equivalent of Star Fox 64.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
is actually a really good comparison.
Yeah, it's just a kind of fun game. You can it's not very long, like you said, you beat it in a day, but you just feel it's so much fun just to go back and replay it. Like, it's just an easy pickup game. You just go play a few rounds, have a good time. Yeah, it's aged well. It's aged really well. So yeah, one of the best.
So it's aged so well, I would actually be willing to argue that if they just took the bones of that game and kept them and did a complete visual overhaul and just like graphically enhanced it, made the models look super good, made the world look super good, but kept literally everything about the physics and the gameplay exactly the same, that would be the ideal. Like, there's nothing I would really change about it, except maybe if they could like find a way to add like new maps, just simply because it would be just nice to have new content for it. But I wouldn't change anything about it.
I don't know.
Your face tells me that you don't agree.
Well, it's weird because on one hand it'd be interesting to see it, but I just feel like there's no way they get it right, because part of the visuals, it's like the simplicity of the visuals back then was kind of somewhat nice because it made it very easy to kind of know where you were and where to go. Whereas like a lot of modern visuals now, they get so detailed that it kind of actually makes it harder to like, I don't know, it like takes away some of the charm. I'm not saying like I'm 100% against it, but I just would be worried that it could ruin some of the goofiness and charm that makes the game what it is. Because I mean, if it's gonna play exactly the same, then there's a little part of me that's like, well, I'll be pretty content with the way it is. The visuals don't bother me at all. Like, I go back and play that game, and it's like the jankiness of it is kind of endearing, and it also just makes it really like clear like what your objective is, because there isn't too much visual clutter on the screen. It's very like,
yeah, that's true.
But it's each their own, right? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, from my perspective, it's like I would just be worried that they would be the kind of, unless they do it right, they have to do it very tastefully if they're going to go do that.
Absolutely. And I just, like, anytime that I'm like pitching something, I'm making the assumption that like, and granted, this is probably a dangerous assumption to make, that they would essentially more or less do it still keeping the overall visual design such that it is clear where you need to go. Like, they do sort of keep the feel of the world, and they make it easy to see, and make it so that even when things are moving by very quickly, that it isn't somehow disorienting to have that much detail flying by at once. Like having too many things change on screen at once could be disorienting. I don't know. Like, ultimately, I just think that it would be nice to have a better looking version of it. But I agree with you. There is some charm to the super simple, goofy, N64 era models. And I am glad that the port actually runs as well as it does, at least on Switch. I assume it runs well on other consoles as well, but
it hopefully should. It's not that old. It's a pretty old game.
Yeah, but as I'm sure you heard, like, back when they ported Battlefront, it didn't exactly go so well, but that was more of like a multiplayer connection issue.
Yeah,
where they essentially launched with like no servers.
Yeah, that was a whole
which is kind of
cluster.
crazy. That was kind of crazy. But
So.
Yeah. Anyway, but Episode 1 Racer is probably my favorite Star Wars game.
Okay, well, I'm gonna bring up another game that Well, actually, no. I think that's gonna fall into a different category. Okay, I'm gonna pick up another. Here's a single player game. This is gonna be kind of a funky one. I have like a whole list of these. I don't know. Maybe this again. I know you. This is getting a little weird, but like you had the single player, but you have arcadey single player. This might fall under arcadey single player. Okay, I got another one actually. Let's bring this one up. So another GameCube era. Well, this isn't GameCube. So episode 1 was N64. Kind of a GameCube era game that I loved a lot as a kid, but I never beat it, and I don't know if it's aged as well as I remember, because I remember playing it again recently, and it was fun but a bit repetitive. Was Star Wars: The Clone Wars?
Yes, I did play this.
I loved that game as a kid. It was like just insanely fun. Going into different ships, and my favorite being the Republic gunship is probably it's just.
Oh yeah.
It's something.
Well, that is the single best Star Wars ship ever.
It is.
Some people would say it's the Millennium Falcon. I actually think it's the Republic gunship.
I don't know what it is about the Republic gunship that just is so cool. When it showed in like episode 2, and when it's in different games, just the sounds it makes and the I don't know. It's just the sound design on that ship is phenomenal. I don't know what it is. Everything about it just makes my hair raise because it's just so good. But yeah, that game. I've gone back and played it, and I'm like realized it's a little janky. Some of the controls and like some of the ships or the things you drive are just they don't. It's a little bit like just point, shoot, dodge, but it is still a lot of fun. It's very just easy, like kind of almost like Dynasty Warriors fun in the sense where it's just like it's not like a crazy high skill level game, but it's just really fun.
Mm-hmm.
You're just destroying a ton of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's. That really is it probably is like one of the better examples of a game that is it sort of has the Star Wars skin, but it really is not like a Star Wars like game. Like that is not what you would normally think of in the entire list of Star Wars games. Like normally if you think of a Star Wars game, you either think about like the Starfighter games that we talked about, or you think about essentially sort of like an action adventure-esque game, similar to, I don't know, like the Jedi games are sort of like action adventures / RPG elements. But, with this one, it is like mostly vehicular combat, almost entirely, with, the exception of like, I think there were like a few like arena moments like where you could run around as a Jedi. Mm-hmm. And those I actually felt played fine, but I think the main attraction is the vehicle combat. So in that way, it's almost like, I'm probably gonna get killed for saying this, it's almost probably like the most like a mech game that they ever really got to in that way, where you do like strafe and shoot, and it is just like unloading as much ammunition into the enemy as possible. Like in that way, it is almost kind of like an Armored Core, but not really.
No, I get what you're saying.
It's like as close as you can get to it. Yeah, it's like as close as they're gonna get to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played. So I never owned this game, but I played a lot like at different friends' house. But weirdly enough, the place I played this the most was at my orthodontist. Because they had one.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You must have gone to the same one.
Oh yeah, absolutely the same one.
And they had that game there. That and like I think they had 2 GameCubes, and one had that and one had Mario Party on it. But I always liked the Star Wars Clone Wars one.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I played so much of this just on that but then that or at friends' houses I played it like, and again, like once I got to Republic Gunship, I was just like a kid in a candy store. Just that was literally all I lived for, was to get to those parts of the game. And just super fun. Just it's one of those games where I'm sure it's like not quite as good as I remember it, but it's just because of nostalgia, I'll probably still go back and beat it and play it again. So
absolutely.
But again,
I'd love to play through it again sometime.
Nintendo I don't know how they have to get the rights to this stuff just to be able to put these games on there, Nintendo classics, just get these games on there. There's just they get so many subscribers just for these games.
Almost certainly. So, there is one in particular that I wanted to make sure that we talked about, and we are getting to about the 3/4 mark.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but can I guess what it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it Republic Commando?
Of course it is.
Okay, I'm like, I
Commando.
literally was looking at my list. I'm like, I'm gonna have to somehow get that on next because that is like, oh my gosh. Okay, that's definitely another one of those like top tier. Like, how the heck have they not
Yes.
made a sequel to this or a remake?
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
it is.
Exactly. Like it like this is clearly one of the strengths of Star Wars, and specifically the prequel era, are the clones, and like just how awesome they were. And you just have to imagine that, like, had I don't know what the limitation was. I don't know if it didn't sell as well as they wanted to. I know very little about this game apart from what I played, but it was like exactly what I wanted from like a clone game. And how we never got either like a true like co-op version of the game, like a sequel with cooperative elements, or you know, like a remake or like whatever, and like how we just didn't get more of it at all is totally beyond me. But I've always wanted to go back and play that game. I think I like rented it from Blockbuster back in the day. But that game, if I remember correctly, has some moments that are like utterly terrifying.
Yeah, it's really like a very like realist. I might say realistic. It's Star Wars, but you know what I mean. Like, just like these
Yeah.
are real military, personnel who are going into these dangerous war zones, dealing with like just. I mean, because you realize like you're not a Jedi, you're a clone. Now you're a clone commando.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of the best ones, but you're still a clone. And so like you feel it's kind of like playing ODST in Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Like you
Yes.
go from playing Master Chief, who could just bullet sponge all these hits, to be like, no wait, I'm an ODST, but I'm still just a human, and like you have to play differently. You can die pretty easily in that game,
Mm-hmm.
and back to talking about Commando though, like but the thing is, so it's dark, it's scary, it's gritty, but I loved so much the commanding of your squad elements
Mm-hmm.
was just like it was so well executed, like the way you did it. It just felt like very natural. It wasn't like this really janky menu thing you had to do with it. Just and it wasn't like insane depth, but it was just you really felt tactical when you're telling your different guys to go different places as you're being flanked and telling them, do different attacks. It was just kind of ahead of its time, really, for a game. And
Like it was Lucasfilm or LucasArts, wasn't it?
100%. I'm pretty sure this was still
Yeah, like
yeah.
honestly, like
This is peak.
what a crazy developer. Like if you actually sit there and think about how many like amazing games they pumped out, like it's really shocking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is peak LucasArts back then.
Yeah.
Like they killed it with everything. And yeah, I have it for PC. I actually beat it on my using Steam. So
Nice.
highly recommend. I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think it only came out on Xbox and PC. Like I don't think it had a PS2 or a GameCube version, which might be why it didn't sell quite as well. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Like I'd have to look it up.
Honestly, I think I played it on Xbox. I think that is where I played it.
Because it was visually like really good for the time too. Like definitely couldn't play it on. I don't think the GameCube or PS2 could have handled that game when it came out. And Xbox had the better graphics card, so
Yeah, it was definitely like one of those games that's always stuck with me. And if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, the super battle droids in that were like a force to be reckoned with.
yeah.
And like as soon as you saw one, like you almost peed a little. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my gosh, another one of these guys. And I feel like the checkpoints were far enough in between that like dying sort of had real stakes in a way. Like not obviously like stakes is actual death, obviously, but it's like it wasn't like Halo where like you got a checkpoint every 25 seconds or whatever. It's like you actually went back a considerable amount of the level, and so dying like was in some ways actually quite painful.
Mm-hmm. I remember I've died a lot in that game. And you're right, like they made the enemies just so menacing and powerful. Like, yeah, with a super, because in the movies you just feel like, oh, super battle droid, Jedi shows up, cuts it in half. But again, you're a clone. So like these things are more powerful battle droids. So you genuinely have to think about how you're going to engage these fights. And then especially when even more powerful enemies eventually show up, but like those things were still like, yeah, very, very like big fights. So I just like how it made you feel, like made every enemy feel like, a challenge. It wasn't just cannon fodder. You really were infiltrating these places. Like you had to be careful.
Yeah, I think it did a really great job of being, again, like it's not exactly one of these, but it's like the closest that it gets to it. It is probably the closest thing to a horror game that Star Wars has had. Like not in terms of like supernatural or anything like that. Like obviously like everything is perfectly consistent with the Star Wars universe in terms of who you're fighting and whatever. But just the way that it, like the lighting and how imposing the enemies feel and just how underpowered you feel, like it's probably the closest it ever got to that. I take it you don't agree?
No, I agree. I'm having to like think back on all the different scenes. I do agree that it definitely had a lot more of a scary vibe to it. It definitely was a much more mature Star Wars game at the time, hence why it probably came out on Xbox. And I'm like looking at my list of games. I'm trying to think if there's any games I didn't play that might also compete with that title a little bit. But I do agree. It definitely had a lot more of that scary vibe of like, you're fighting for your life. As far as horror elements, I'm sure there's other games that have just as scary and like horrifying. I know like even in like Fallen Order, there's some pretty spooky different elements and stuff. But like, yeah, I think I'd agree with you though. Like definitely as an overall feeling of dread and fear, like as you're like, again, like you said, like dying has more consequence. You're not as strong. You come around corners, you just don't know what you're going to encounter. Yeah, such a good game. You're making me want to go replay this game. I mean, I just really...
Yeah, I want to play it again too.
Yeah. So you don't have it?
I don't.
Oh, use Steam. Just wait for a sale
Yeah.
on Steam.
I should. Yeah, Watch is probably on sale right now.
Yeah, I should look it up and get it. But it's a super good, super fun game. Either that or I'll see if I can lend it to you on Steam. I think it can do that. So
probably. But yeah, that's one that I think definitely deserves a sequel or something, some sort of follow up.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, yeah, I wonder now that it's been so long, but you never know. They sometimes are crazy enough to come back to some of those titles and do it again. But it's because it's based on the prequel trilogy. You just don't see, the current Star Wars, executives looking to go back to anything that's prequel based. They just are so caught up on original trilogy, sequel trilogy stuff, and if they do delve into prequel stuff, it's just more for the lore. Like the Obi-Wan TV series was about as close as they got, I feel like. No, Ahsoka kind of, Ahsoka's kind of a little bit that. They dabble in it, but again, it's all set more modern and more like current, like older Star Wars era, but like refers back to the prequel stuff without genuinely diving into it too much. But I think they're noticing a trend that people really do miss that prequel stuff, like the lore and the Clone Wars and the stuff like that. So I feel like they're slowly bringing some of that back. And maybe if people keep buying it and loving it, they'll go back to those games and be like, hey, maybe we'll remaster it. Maybe we'll make a sequel. Maybe we'll, go down that road again. But just listen to our podcast, Star Wars, Star Wars executives. And just, we speak for Star Wars fans. We know what they like.
Absolutely. We speak for every single Star Wars fan ever.
Yeah.
I am like trying to imagine like who you would put in charge of a Republic Commando like reboot, or not like reboot, but like a remake or like a sequel.
I don't know.
Like just what developer? Because LucasArts is gone, right? So it's like,
well, they've been rebranded, I think, but I don't know if they're still the same. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of current developers that do anything similar because everything's like a live service game now. I was gonna say like the guys who did Rainbow Six Siege, but like it's all live service. I don't want them to turn to a live service game. I want it to be a sequel, single player game. Maybe actually, I'd love it if. I don't think the Republic Commando was co-op, but it'd be cool if it was.
No. Yeah, and that's one thing that I would love to see is like just a co-op version of that. Like in some ways, I'd almost want to see. And this is going to seem like kind of a crazy idea, but at the same time, I actually don't think it's that. If I remember correctly, it's Creative Assembly, like the people who did Alien Isolation. Like, just in terms of atmospheric sci-fi, they clearly do a good job. Now, I wouldn't want them to go as, like, horror as Alien Isolation. Like, that's obviously not what they're going, what I'm suggesting. But in terms of, like, sort of how you interact with the world, like, how I would envision, you moving around a station and being isolated at certain times, because that's also some of the brilliance of Republic Commando, is there were times you were isolated and then there were times you were all together, and it did a phenomenal job balancing that. It's like, I could totally see them actually, like, if you were to just, like, go to them and say, hey, would you want to give this a shot? And if they said yes, I'm sure they could create something really good. That being said, it's, my understanding is they only just now got Alien Isolation 2 greenlit.
Mm-hmm.
And which is, like, crazy. Like, I don't know why it took that long.
I don't know. It's the gaming industry is in a weird place right now. So, especially with licensed properties. So,
yeah.
But I think that's a good game to finish on. I don't want to jump into another one because I just feel like that was
Yeah, there's clearly a lot more just based on my list alone.
Oh yeah, we may have this. May be a 3 episode.
We didn't even talk about The Force Unleashed. Like, we didn't even talk about that at all.
Yeah, I think we'll have to bring some more stuff up in the next one. And I've got a ton of, like, I've covered actually a lot of the more modern games. I have an insane amount of games that I like, more arcadey / I played a lot of the GBA games.
Oh, me too. I have like an entire GBA section here.
So that might fall into the arcadey type stuff. But we'll talk. I think we'll talk more about that in another episode. I've got, again, still more. We got multiplayer games to talk about. We got other single player games we didn't bring up. The world of Star Wars games is pretty vast. And yeah, and I'm just looking at my list. I know you have games. You have games that I haven't even played and on your list. So, we'll.
But one we've both played and need to talk about eventually is Jedi Power Battles.
Oh yeah, that's on my list. We're getting there, but
all right.
we'll save that for another
teaser
time.
For next time.
Teaser, guys, teasers. So, well, I think this has been fun. I hope everyone's enjoyed this trip down memory lane with Star Wars. I'd love to hear what Star Wars games. If these games, if you've played them, or if there's games that maybe we didn't mention that you'd like to bring up, we may talk about those eventually in another episode. But thank you all for listening. We appreciate you. We're glad to be back, and we'll try to keep these episodes still going. There's no more Claire Obscure games coming out, so that helps. I know it's sad. Yeah. It's a bittersweet thing to beat it, but and maybe one day we'll talk about that game, but it's just too new. We don't want to. I feel like we would talk about it and we would spoil it. Like, what makes a game fun to talk about is just the really big, deep lore stuff that game drops. So I don't think we could really build a podcast out of it without spoiling something. So
yeah, like when we would send private messages to each other about it, and we just like be dancing around any details, just try not to spoil it for each other. That was a pretty unique experience.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. You had to be there. So, alrighty. Well, thank you for listening. This has been the Super Dandori Bros Podcast. I'm Leighton. He's Ryan, and we'll talk to you again in the next one. Bye.
See ya.